A woman who can't even keep her own house clean has no business raising children. Miriam's words sliced through the air, silencing the dining room. I felt my face flush as I gripped my fork tighter, willing myself not to react. Eli, my husband of just 6 months, shifted uncomfortably in his chair but remained silent. Coward. I forced a smile. Well, Miriam, I suppose we all have different priorities. I've been focused on bonding with Caleb and Ethan. Caleb, my 14-year-old stepson, rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath. Ethan, the 10-year-old, at least offered me a small smile. Walter, Eli's father, cleared his throat. Rachel, dear, perhaps you could learn a thing or two from Miriam about running a household. After all, she raised Eli to be a fine man. I bit my tongue, tasting blood. This was supposed to be a celebration dinner. I just found out I was pregnant. But as I looked around the table at my new family, I realized this news might not be the unifying force I'd hoped for. Actually, I began, my voice shaking slightly. I have some news, Dash. Oh, Rachel, Miriam interrupted, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Before I forget, I took the liberty of hiring a cleaning service for you. They'll start next week. We can't have my grandsons living in squalor, can we? I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Excuse me, I managed to choke out before fleeing to the bathroom. As I splashed cold water on my face, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Who was this woman, allowing herself to be bullied by her in-laws? Where was the strong, independent Rachel I used to be? A soft knock on the door startled me. Rachel, it was Ethan. Are you okay? I opened the door, forcing a smile. I'm fine, sweetie. Just needed a moment. Ethan's eyes were full of concern. Grandma can be mean sometimes, he whispered. But I like you. I felt my eyes well up with tears as I hugged him. At least one person in this family was on my side. As we walked back to the dining room, I overheard Miriam's voice. I just don't understand what Eli sees in her. His first wife was so much better. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. This was my life now, constantly compared to a ghost, never measuring up. But as I felt the first flutter of life in my belly, I knew I had to fight. For myself, for my unborn child, and for the family I desperately wanted us to become. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door, ready to face whatever came next. I woke to the sound of Miriam's voice, sharp and critical, drifting up from the kitchen. My stomach churned, a mix of morning sickness and dread. I hadn't told anyone about the pregnancy yet, not even Eli. How could I, when I felt so unwelcome in my own home? Steeling myself, I made my way downstairs. Miriam was standing over Caleb, fussing with his hair. Honestly, Rachel, she snapped when she saw me. Can't you even make sure the boys look presentable for school? I bit back a retort. Good morning, Caleb. Did you sleep well? He shrugged, avoiding my eyes. It was fine. Miriam scat. Rachel, dear, you really should take more interest in the children. A good mother would know if her son slept well or not. The words stung, but I forced a smile. I'm still learning, Miriam. We all are. Just then, Ethan bounded into the kitchen, his backpack askew. Morning, Rachel. He gave me a quick hug before grabbing a piece of toast. Miriam's eyes narrowed. Ethan, remember what we talked about? It's not appropriate to be so familiar with your stepmother. I felt the blood drain from my face. Miriam, that's not Dash. It's fine, Ethan mumbled, his earlier enthusiasm dampened. As the boys left for school, I turned to confront Miriam, but Walter appeared in the doorway. Rachel, he said, his tone dismissive. Eli tells me you're trying to bond with Caleb. I think it's best you leave that to us. He needs a man's influence, not some newcomer. I opened my mouth to argue, but nausea overwhelmed me. I barely made it to the bathroom before retching violently. When I emerged, pale and shaky, Miriam was waiting. If you can't handle simple household duties without getting sick, perhaps you're not cut out for this family after all. That evening, I overheard Miriam and Walter in the study. She's nothing like Sarah, Miriam was saying. Sarah was a real mother, a true partner for Eli. This one, she's just not good enough. Give it time, Walter replied. Eli will see his mistakes soon enough. I pressed a hand to my still flat stomach, tears stinging my eyes. How could I bring a baby into this toxic environment? And how long would it be before Eli realized I wasn't the mistake? His parents were. As I turned to leave, I bumped into Caleb. The look in his eyes told me he'd heard everything too. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of sympathy. Then his walls went up, and he brushed past me without a word. I retreated to my bedroom, feeling more alone than ever. This house was a battlefield, and I was losing the war. Something had to change, and soon. For my sake, for the baby's sake, and for the family I desperately wanted us to become. The piercing wail of a newborn shattered the tense silence in the delivery room. I collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted but elated. "Gwen," I whispered, reaching out for my daughter. Eli's face was a mix of joy and anxiety as he placed her in my arms. "She's beautiful, Rachel," he murmured, kissing my forehead. The moment was perfect, until Miriam's voice cut through our bubble. "Well, let's hope she takes after her father's side of the family." I bit my lip, refusing to let her ruin this. Eli shifted uncomfortably but said nothing, as usual. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings. Miriam hovered, criticizing every decision I made. "You're holding her wrong," she'd snap. Or, "Surely you're not feeding her again?" One afternoon, I overheard her talking to Walter in the hallway. "It's not too late for Eli to reconsider this whole arrangement," she hissed. "That child doesn't have to tie him to her forever." My blood ran cold. I looked down at Gwen, peacefully sleeping in my arms, and made a silent vow to protect her from their toxicity. Caleb, surprisingly, was the first to show genuine interest in his half-sister. I caught him peering into her crib one night, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it. "She has mom's eyes," he said quietly, not looking at me. "I wish I could have known her," I replied, careful not to push too hard. He shrugged, walls going back up. "Yeah, well, she was a real mom." The words stung, but I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes before he left the room. As weeks passed, my health began to suffer. The constant stress and lack of sleep left me drained. Eli noticed but seemed at a loss for what to do. One particularly rough night, Gwen wouldn't stop crying. I paced the nursery, bouncing her gently, when Miriam appeared in the doorway. "For heaven's sake, give her to me," she snapped, reaching for the baby. Something in me snapped. "No," I said firmly, stepping back. "She's my daughter, and I'll handle this." Miriam's eyes narrowed. "You can barely take care of yourself, let alone a child. Face it, Rachel, you're not cut out for this family." I felt dizzy, the room spinning around me. The last thing I heard before everything went black was Gwen's cry and Miriam's startled gasp. When I came to, I was in bed with Eli beside me, looking worried. "The doctor says it's exhaustion," he explained. "You need rest, Rachel." I tried to sit up. "Where's Gwen? Is she okay?" "She's fine. Mom's watching her." The thought of Miriam with my baby made my stomach churn. "Eli, we need to talk. About your parents, about us, about everything. This can't go on."
He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know. I don't know how to fix this." As if on cue, we heard Miriam's voice from downstairs, cooing to Gwen. "Don't worry, little one. Grandma will make everything right." I met Eli's eyes, seeing a flicker of understanding there for the first time. Something had to change, and soon. For all our sakes. I found Caleb in the attic, surrounded by dusty boxes and old photo albums. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he clutched a faded picture to his chest. "Caleb?" I approached cautiously. "Are you okay?" He looked up, startled, then relaxed slightly. "Oh, it's you." I sat beside him, careful not to intrude on his space. "What's that you're holding?" He hesitated, then slowly handed me the photo. It showed a younger Caleb with a beautiful woman, his mother, Sarah. They were both laughing, carefree, and happy. "She looks lovely," I said softly. Caleb nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Grandma Miriam made her cry a lot, you know." My heart clenched. "What do you mean?" He took a shaky breath. "Mom tried so hard to please her, but nothing was ever good enough. Grandma would criticize everything, her cooking, her parenting, even the way she looked at Dad." He paused, meeting my eyes. "Kind of like how she treats you." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Caleb, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Yeah, well. He shrugged, but I could see the pain in his eyes. Mom got sick not long after. Sometimes I wonder if. He trailed off, but the implication was clear. The stress had taken its toll on Sarah, just as it was now affecting me. Later that day, I met my friend Beatrice for coffee. As soon as she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. Spill it, Rachel. What's going on? I poured out everything, the constant criticism, Eli's passivity, and now Caleb's revelation about his mother. Beatrice listened intently, her expression growing darker with each word. Rachel, honey, this isn't just family drama. This is emotional abuse. You need to stand up for yourself and those kids. Her words hit home. I thought of Gwen, of Caleb and Ethan. What kind of future were they facing in this toxic environment? Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Walter, his message curt, family meeting tonight. Be there. I showed Beatrice, my hand shaking. What do? She squeezed my hand. You fight, Rachel. For yourself, for those kids, and for the family you deserve. As I drove home, my mind raced. I thought of Sarah, worn down by years of Miriam's cruelty. I thought of Caleb's pain, Ethan's diminishing spirit, and little Gwen's future. And for the first time, I felt a spark of anger ignite within me. Walking into the house, I overheard Walter's booming voice from the study. It's time we discussed Rachel's role in this family. Or lack thereof. I paused at the door, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would define our future. I could walk away, try to keep the peace as I'd always done. Or I could stand my ground and fight for the family I loved. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door, ready to face whatever came next. I stood in the attic, my hands trembling as I held a dusty shoebox. Inside were dozens of letters, all addressed to Eli from his late wife, Sarah. I shouldn't read them, I knew, but something compelled me to unfold the first one. My dearest Eli, it began, I don't know how much longer I can endure your mother's cruelty. My heart raced as I skimmed through letter after letter. Sarah's words painted a vivid picture of manipulation, criticism, and emotional abuse at the hands of Miriam. It was a mirror image of my own experiences. Footsteps on the stairs startled me. I quickly shoved the letters back into the box as Eli appeared. Rachel? What are you doing up here? I couldn't hide the tears in my eyes. Eli, we need to talk. About your mother, about Sarah, about us. His face paled. You found the letters. I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. Did you know? About how your mother treated Sarah? Eli slumped against the wall, suddenly looking older than his years. I knew it was bad. But I didn't want to see how bad. It was easier to pretend everything was fine. Anger flared within me. Easier for whom, Eli? Not for Sarah, and certainly not for me or your children. He flinched at my words. Rachel, I'm sorry. I don't know how to stand up to her. Well, you'd better learn fast, I snapped. Because I won't let our family suffer the same fate as Sarah. Just then, Gwen's cry echoed through the baby monitor. As I moved to leave, Eli grabbed my arm. What are you going to do? He asked, fear in his eyes. I met his gaze, my resolve hardening. I'm going to protect our family, Eli. With or without you. Downstairs, I found Miriam holding Gwen, cooing softly. There, little one. Grandma's here now. Something in me snapped. I strode forward and took Gwen from her arms. No, Miriam. I'm here. Her mother. Miriam's eyes narrowed. Well, it's about time you showed some interest in your child. I took a deep breath, Sarah's words echoing in my mind. This ends now, Miriam. Your manipulation, your cruelty, it stops today. She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. Oh, please. You'll never last in this family without me. Watch me, I growled. Turning to Eli, who had followed me downstairs, I said, I'm leaving, Eli. I'm taking Gwen, and I'll take Caleb and Ethan too if they want to come. I won't let your mother destroy another family. Eli's face crumpled. Rachel, please. But I was already heading for the stairs, my mind made up. As I packed a bag, I heard raised voices from below, Eli and his parents arguing, Caleb demanding to know what was happening. My hand hovered over my phone. One call to Beatrice and I'd have a place to go. But could I really leave? Could I tear this family apart? As Gwen whimpered in her crib, I knew my answer. For her sake, for Caleb and Ethan's, and for my own, I had to be strong. I had to leave. With shaking hands, I dialed Beatrice's number, ready to take the first step towards freedom. I stood in the living room, my packed bag at my feet, Gwen cradled in my arms. The air crackled with tension as Miriam, Walter, and Eli stared at me in disbelief. You can't be serious, Miriam scoffed. Where do you think you're going? Away from you, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Away from your manipulation and cruelty. Walter stepped forward, his face red with anger. Now see here, young lady. No, you see here, I interrupted, surprising even myself. I've seen the letters. I know what you did to Sarah, and I won't let you do the same to me or these children. Eli's face paled. Rachel, please, let's talk about this. We're done talking, Eli. It's time to act. Just then, Caleb and Ethan appeared at the bottom of the stairs, confusion etched on their faces. What's going on? Caleb asked, his eyes darting between us. I took a deep breath. I'm leaving, Caleb. And you and Ethan can come with me if you want. I won't force you, but I want you to know you have a choice. Miriam lunged forward, grabbing Caleb's arm. Don't be ridiculous. You're not going anywhere with her. Something in Caleb's eyes shifted. He looked at me, then at Gwen, and finally at his grandmother. Slowly, he pulled his arm free. I want to go with Rachel, he said quietly. Ethan nodded, moving to stand beside his brother. Me too. The room erupted into chaos. Miriam screamed, Walter bellowed, and Eli stood frozen, torn between his parents and his family. Enough! I shouted over the din. Eli, it's time to choose. Your parents or your family? Eli's eyes met mine, filled with fear and uncertainty. For a moment, I thought he might crumble. But then something changed. His spine straightened, and he turned to face his parents.
Mom, Dad, this has to stop, he said, his voice shaking but determined. Rachel is my wife, and these are our children. If you can't accept that, then we're leaving. Miriam's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful dash. Save it. Eli cut her off. We're done here. As we moved towards the door, Walter made one last attempt. If you walk out that door, don't even think about coming back. I held my breath, waiting for Eli's response. He paused, his hand on the doorknob, and looked back at his parents. Goodbye, Mom and Dad. I hope someday you'll understand. With that, we stepped out into the cool night air, leaving behind the suffocating atmosphere of the house. As we walked to the car, I felt a mix of relief, fear, and hope. Eli turned to me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Rachel, I'm so sorry. For everything. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at him, then at Caleb and Ethan loading their bags into the car, and finally at Gwen sleeping peacefully in my arms. We had a long road ahead, but for the first time in months, I felt like we might actually make it. It's a start, Eli, I said softly. It's a start. The car was packed, and we were ready to leave. But as Eli turned the key in the ignition, Miriam came bursting out of the house, her face contorted with rage. You ungrateful children, she screamed. After everything we've done for you. I clutched Gwen tighter as Eli stepped out of the car. Mom, please. Don't make this harder than it already is. Miriam's eyes locked onto mine, filled with venom. This is all your fault, you home-wrecking witch. You've turned my son against me. Caleb and Ethan watched wide-eyed from the back seat as Walter appeared in the doorway, his face grim. Eli, he called out, his voice eerily calm. If you leave now, don't even think about coming back. You'll be cut off completely. No inheritance, no support. Nothing. I saw Eli falter, the weight of his father's words hitting him hard. For a moment, I feared he might cave. But then Caleb spoke up from the car. Dad, please. We need to go. Something in Eli's posture changed. He straightened his back and looked his father in the eye. I don't need your money, Dad. I need my family. As he turned back to the car, Miriam made a desperate lunge for Gwen. You can't take my grandbaby. I reacted instinctively, twisting away and shielding Gwen with my body. In the chaos, I felt a sharp pain as Miriam's nails raked across my arm. Mom, stop, Eli shouted, pulling her away. Walter strode forward, his face thunderous. This is your last chance, Eli. Stay, or lose everything. Time seemed to stand still as we all waited for Eli's response. I held my breath, acutely aware of the children's anxious faces and Gwen's soft whimpers. Eli looked at me, then at his children, and finally back at his parents. I'm sorry, he said softly, but I choose them. With that, he got back into the car and started the engine. As we pulled away, I saw Miriam collapse to her knees, wailing dramatically, while Walter stood stone-faced in the doorway. The further we drove, the lighter the air in the car seemed to become. Ethan was the first to break the silence. Are we really free now? I turned to look at the boys, seeing a mix of fear and hope in their eyes. Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. We're free. Eli reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry it took me so long to stand up to them, Rachel. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at him, seeing the man I'd fallen in love with emerging from the shadow of his parents' control. It's a start, I said softly. We have a long way to go, but it's a start. As we drove into the night, towards Beatrice's house and our uncertain future, I felt a glimmer of hope. We'd faced our demons and come out the other side. Now, we had the chance to build the family we'd always dreamed of, one founded on love, respect, and understanding. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I felt ready to face whatever challenges came our way. Together. 6 months had passed since we left Miriam and Walter's house. Our new home, a modest rental, was filled with the sounds of laughter and occasional squabbles, the soundtrack of a real family. As I prepared breakfast, I watched Eli helping Ethan with his homework while Caleb cradled Gwen, making silly faces to make her giggle. The scene before me was so different from the tense, oppressive atmosphere we'd left behind. Rachel, Eli's voice broke through my reverie. Can we talk? My heart skipped a beat. Old fears die hard. Of course, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We stepped onto the back porch, the morning sun warming our faces. Eli took a deep breath. I got a call from Dad last night. I froze, memories of Walter's threats flooding back. What did he want? To apologize, Eli said, his voice filled with disbelief. He and Mom have been in therapy. They want to make amends. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to slam the door on the past, but another part recognized the importance of this moment for Eli and the boys. What do you think? I asked carefully. Eli's eyes met mine, clear and determined. I think we should meet them, but on our terms. No more manipulation, no more control. If they can't respect our boundaries, they're out of our lives for good. I nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and hope. Okay, we'll face this together. Later that week, we met Miriam and Walter in a neutral location, a park near our new home. As they approached, I instinctively tightened my grip on Gwen. Miriam spoke first, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. Rachel, we're so sorry. For everything. Walter nodded, looking older and more subdued than I remembered. We've realized how toxic our behavior was. We don't expect forgiveness, but we hope you'll give us a chance to be better. I looked at Eli, then at Caleb and Ethan. The boys seemed cautiously hopeful. Eli squeezed my hand, silently communicating his support. Taking a deep breath, I made a decision. We're willing to try, but there will be rules. Our family, our choices. If you can respect that, we can work on rebuilding our relationship. As we talked, setting boundaries and expectations, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. We weren't erasing the past, but we were creating the possibility of a healthier future. That night, as I tucked Gwen into her crib, I realized something profound. The strength I'd found wasn't just about standing up to Miriam and Walter. It was about creating a home where love and respect flourished, where each family member could grow and thrive. Eli joined me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You okay?" he asked softly. I turned to face him, smiling through tears. "More than okay. We did it, Eli. We built the family we always wanted." As we stood there, surrounded by the quiet contentment of our home, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger, wiser, and united by the bonds of true family love.